Welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to talk about the death of the two-stroke. Okay, first order of business. This video is in response to the Gorilla Biker who did a video on his favorite motorcycle, the V4 Magnum. Can't hate on that. V4s are awesome. If you've never heard of V4, you probably are living in a cave, so get ready for an orgasm in your ear.
This last one.
That sounded like a V4. Alright, so I'm going to put a little bit of a twist on it. Gorilla Biker specifically challenged a number of motovloggers, myself included, to do a video about your favorite motorcycle. I'm going to do a video about not necessarily my favorite motorcycle, but one that I consider to be the most interesting in terms of its history. I know that not everybody that's going to watch this video is a big motocross, supercross fan, so I'm just going to go over a quote. Okay, Supercross. Supercross is where they truckload in boatloads of dirt, tons of dirt, into a football or baseball stadium. American football, I realize that football is completely different in Europe, what we call soccer. For you Aussies, rugby, I guess, I don't know. After the races are done, they tear the track down, truck all the dirt back out, and then they resume playing football and baseball. Yay. Now, motocross is quite different. The tracks are using natural terrain. So the tracks tend to be a lot larger, the speeds are a lot higher, and the race durations are longer, and the race series takes place during the summer, whereas Supercross takes place during the winter. So the physical demands are quite a bit higher because you're racing for longer durations at higher speeds in the heat of the summer, humidity, sun, all those kinds of things. So the level of fitness for motocross is higher than it is for Supercross, and it's already pretty high for Supercross, but that's neither here nor there. Those are the nuances, the differences between Supercross and motocross. Now, I'm going to pause here because I need to take a break. Okay, so the bike that I chose to talk about is the Yamaha YZ450. I really like Yamaha from the perspective of they're not afraid to take chances, and they're very innovative. So let me give you a couple examples on street and dirt. On street, the Yamaha R1 cross-plane crank. That thing is amazing. Now I know in MotoGP, the Yamaha is struggling. They're down on top speed, and any of the tracks that have really long straightaways, they tend to struggle. But the fact that you can buy a production bike with a cross-plane crank is pretty amazing. And that bike, next to a V4, there's nothing that sounds better than the Yamaha R1. On the motocross side of things, Yamaha actually has a reversed engine. Like, how do I explain this? So typically the exhaust comes out of the front of the motorcycle, and the exhaust pipe wraps around the side and then heads towards the rear of the bike. Well, Yamaha took their engine and just did a 180, right? So the front is actually where the air intake is, and the exhaust comes out of the back of the motor. It's already facing the rear. Now that presents some challenges because there's not a lot of space between the rear of the engine and the back of the motorcycle, right? So you need the exhaust pipe to be a certain length, right? The exhaust tuning, you want back pressure and all these kinds of things, right? So they tried some innovative stuff with their first rearward engine design. They eventually changed the exhaust design so that the exhaust would come out the rear still. The engine is still reversed, but it wraps around to the front so that they can get the desired length out of the exhaust pipe that they want. But still, the point is, they're doing stuff on street and dirt that nobody else is doing. And they're just not afraid to try things and do things and take chances, and that's pretty cool. Okay, so we know we're talking about the YZ450, and you're probably asking yourself, what the heck does that bike have to do with the death of the two-stroke in professional racing? It's really quite simple, and in order to answer that question, we need to go all the way back to 1996. Speaking of which, I'm getting a lot more gray hairs. All right, so 1996, the AMA, which is one of the sanctioning bodies here in the United States of America, the AMA changed the rules so that 450cc four-strokes could race alongside the 250 two-strokes. And Yamaha was the first one to jump on this. They were like, cool. And so the very next year, 1997, Yamaha introduced the YZ400M, was the official model name, I believe. Now, they didn't jump to the 450cc limit right out of the gate. They built the 400 and had almost instant success. They won their first race that same year at Las Vegas. Now, you could argue, why did the AMA change the rules in 1996 to essentially try and promote these larger displacement four-strokes? And there's lots of conspiracy theories, if you will, about why they went this way. Some people think it was the EPA. So here in the United States, we have a government agency called the EPA, which stands for the Environmental Protection Agency. They're essentially a bunch of govies who run around the United States and make sure that nobody's allowed to have any fun. That's what the EPA does. If you go to California, they are probably the most restrictive state in terms of environmental protection policies and laws. But a lot of people think, oh, well, the EPA wanted to clamp down on two-strokes because, and it's true, they definitely emit a lot more harmful emissions than their four-stroke counterparts. A lot of people also think that the manufacturers expressed concern and basically said, hey, we've reached the end of the development life cycle for the 252 stroke. So we got to do something different. And with the introduction of all the electronics in the last 10 plus years, they can do some really cool stuff with the four strokes that they couldn't do prior to. So a lot of people think it was the manufacturers pushing and lobbying the AMA to change the rules so that they could develop new four strokes. I think that's probably a more realistic conspiracy theory, because for the most part it all comes down to making money. And the manufacturers now are charging, not quite twice as much, but almost twice as much for a new 454 stroke versus what the 252 strokes were going for, many years ago. Nowadays, there's only two manufacturers, KTM and Yamaha, that still produce or still manufacture two strokes. And Yamaha doesn't really develop their two stroke anymore. They're kind of just reproducing the same bike over and over and over. KTM still actively develops their two-stroke, and they have a lot of other two-stroke models in the off-road world, so that kind of makes sense that they still develop it and push the technology. But other than that, there's really nothing else. I mean, there's a couple other manufacturers. Beta makes a two-stroke, but in terms of professional racing, nothing. Nada. Okay, so in 1998, right? So 1996, AMA changed the rules. 1997, Yamaha's like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Came out with the YZ400M. 1998, they came out with the YZ400F. In 1997, they didn't have a production bike. It was kind of a one-off prototype bike, right? So in their second year of producing this four-stroke race bike, they went to production with it. But by the time it was done in production, the bike weighed 250 pounds, right? That was pretty significant, right? If you're thinking about how much like cars weigh, right? 25 pounds on a car doesn't really make much of a difference. 25 pounds on a motorcycle that only weighs 230 pounds is huge, humongous, okay? It makes a big difference, right? So production-wise, the bike was still fairly undesirable by a lot of people because it weighed so much more than the lighter, more nimble 252 strokes. The thing probably turned like a tank. I personally have never ridden one. I've ridden some of the other 4-strokes that were very early on in their development, Hondas and Kawasaki's. But I just have to imagine the thing probably rode like a tank, right? In production trim. In race trim, you're allowed to do all kinds of crazy shit, so not a big deal. Okay, so in 2003, Yamaha released their 3rd generation YZ. This time they went all the way up to the 450 displacement limit the AMA imposed. And at this point, Honda has joined in, and they are now producing a race CRF 450 4-stroke motocross bike. And I think it was in 2004, Ricky Carmichael actually went undefeated on the Honda CRF 450. He won every motocross race that year. It was pretty staggering. That has only happened 3 times in the history of AMA motocross here in the United States. Twice by Ricky Carmichael. In 2002, he went undefeated, won every single race on a CR 250 2-stroke, and then he repeated that feat in 2004 on the 450 motocross bike that Honda was producing. And then James Stewart did it in 2008 on a Kawasaki 450. Now, indoors, the bikes still faced a big hurdle. And when I say the bikes, I mean the 450 4-stroke bikes. They still faced a lot of challenges. Most of the top riders, despite the early success that Yamaha had with Doug Henry, most of the top riders hadn't converted to 4-strokes when racing Supercross. They were only using them for outdoor motocross races. Now in 2006, Yamaha went to the all aluminum frame, which shaved like another 10 pounds off the bike. This is their 4th generation Yamaha YZ 450. Another big innovation in 2006 was the KYB. Okay, pause the video. Just shut up, monkey bud. Okay. Here's the deal. This is what's really important about 2006. Not Yamaha's all-new aluminum chassis and their fancy Triple S suspension, which is on this bike right here. I love it. But the important thing to remember about 2006 is that was the death of the 2-stroke in professional Supercross and motocross racing. Now, to be fair, it was already dead in motocross. I think it was 2004. All of the top riders converted to 4-strokes, 450 4-strokes in the outdoor motocross series. The only exception to that was Kawasaki, and that's because they didn't even produce their first 450 until 2006. So all the Team Green riders were forced to race 252 strokes against the 450 4-strokes in outdoor motocross. However, it wasn't until 2006 when all those same top riders converted to 2-strokes for Supercross or indoor racing. So that's the important thing to remember about 2006. That's when these guys right here, that's when these guys died. They're dead to professional racing. Makes me sad. Triple S suspension. Now, for those of you that are not super familiar with motocross and supercross, the KYB Triple S suspension that Yamaha puts on their bikes is regarded as some of the best stock suspension you can buy. It rivals, by some reviewers' opinions, factory suspension. This stuff is really, really good. And I've been riding my YZ 252 stroke. I bought it in 2011 and it's now 2019, so I've been riding that bike for 8 years now, and I can attest to the confidence inspiring suspension that's on the bike. The bike just, it never does anything really weird that makes me second guess what it may or may not do in a particular section on the track. I always have confidence that no matter how rough the track gets, no matter what the terrain looks like, that I know what it's going to do, which is very, very important. So in 2010, Yamaha introduced the rearward engine design. This was really, really cool because it did a couple of things. One, it separated them from everybody else because they were doing something different. And the difference was they took their engine and they turned it around 180 degrees so that the exhaust actually came out of the back of the bike, which makes sense, right? That if you imagine the bike moving forward, the air intake is going to be at the front, right? So it's like if you look at all the other engine designs, street and dirt, it doesn't really make a lot of sense from the perspective of I need to take air into the engine and exhaust it after I've burned the oxygen in the combustion chamber, right? And so if you imagine the bike moving forward down the road, it's you know, all of the designs today and throughout history for the most part, it's ass backwards, right? The bike's moving forward, but we exhaust the burnt oxygen and air, you know, out of the front of the bike. It doesn't make any sense. And then we run it around the rear, right? So Yamaha took their engine, they turned it 180 degrees, and now they're consuming oxygen intake from the front of the bike as it's moving forward, and they're exhausting the burnt combustion out of the rear of the bike. Now they got to do something weird where they wrap the exhaust around the front so that they can get the exhaust pipe to be the right length, but it centralizes all of the mass of the motorcycle so that you can actually lower the center of gravity. You bring all the weight to the center of the bike, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, all that being said, the last time Yamaha won a big bike being 450 cc's, the last time they won a big bike championship in American Motocross or Supercross was, I think, 2009, right? So it's been over a decade since they've won a major title. But it just makes sense what they did. It's just not working out for them 100%. Another really cool, innovative thing that Yamaha did, and they took this from their street bike, but their motocross bike had a 5-valve head. So all of the motocross bikes today, including the current Yamaha, have 4-valve heads. So you have 2 intake valves, you have 2 exhaust valves. Yamaha, for a very long time, ran a 5-valve head, and I want to say it was 3 intakes and 2 exhausts. Not 100% sure on that. Maybe somebody can put a comment down below and correct me if I'm wrong. But it wasn't until 2010, I think it was, when they went with the rearward engine design that they went to the traditional 2 intake valves and 2 exhaust valves, or 4 valves in the head. So it's just another example of the things that Yamaha does that a lot of other manufacturers are afraid to take chances and do some stuff different from everybody else, but Yamaha's not. So I think that's really cool. So that 5th gen version of the YZ450 ran into, I think, or through 2013. So from 2014 to the present day, Yamaha continues to improve the bike and improve the fuel injection system, improve the durability. They're making the bike lighter. They're still innovative in the sense that Yamaha a couple of years ago released a Android app. I'm not sure if they have an iPhone app, they probably do, but essentially you can now change fuel maps and essentially tune the bike from your smartphone. That's pretty crazy. Now, one thing I'd be worried about is somebody hacking into my bike and changing the fuel maps or doing something different with the configuration. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, that's not my favorite bike, but one of the most interesting bikes, I think, in terms of its history and how it's matured into what it is today. And Yamaha, again, being innovative and not being afraid to take chances to do things different from everybody else on street and dirt. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. Hope it was informative and maybe you learned something new about a bike manufacturer or motocross and supercross, or anything at all, really. So if you like this video, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up. Or if you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. I actually measure success by the number of thumbs down I get. I recently got 2 thumbs down on a video. I was very excited about that. That was a first for me. And if you're not pissing people off, then you need to try harder. All right, So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.